backstory into the campaign that we have started. We have a wonderful group of adventurers that were brought together for a query by a cursed sorcerer who appeared to them in an astral projection. Gave them a few trials to be sure that they were able to handle what he was about to throw at them. Through those trials, they found out that he was cursed by the illustrious and very gluttonous Jinn King, who has a treasure trove that the sorcerer has been cursed to guard for the rest of eternity. His trickery has basically driven him mad, so the sorcerer is getting very desperate and asks our wonderful adventurers to help him in entering the Jinn King's palace, and trying to put the Genie King back into his bottle to undo all of his contracts, deals, and trickery and wishes that he has granted since he has escaped it. On the way, they encounter a traveling merchant that helps them get into the city. Balathos does his Balathos ways, makes papers for everybody to get into the palace. As they get in there, they, fight their way through. Once they get into the Jinn King's Tavern Trove, all of our warriors find a wonderful treasure of their own to take on through their adventures. And then our wonderful Bardlock picked up a scroll that he just couldn't help but read. The scroll then exploded in a surge of wild magic, cursing all of them with a slowly overtaking power of the pure natural wild magics that will slowly consume them. And as it slowly consumes them, their dice have wonderfully been cursed. So every crit fail they roll, and each one of their cursed numbers that I had them roll pops up on their d20. They have to roll percentiles on the wild magic surge table, which pleases me very much so. Anyway, they find from one of the Jinn King's servants, after he lets them go with a mocking laugh towards their wonderful curse that's put upon them. He decides there's nothing worse he could possibly do to them as it slowly corrupts and destroys them. One of his servants, who is actually undercover to try and put an end to the Jinn King's reign, actually told them of a legend of the 5 elemental crystals of the pure natural magic, pure nature magics, that when brought together will actually explode in a pure, warm, white magical energy that will actually be able to cleanse them of their curse before it overtakes them. They set out. Their first adventure was to the, I think we decided it was the Earthbender steroid town of miners, earth movers, elementals, very, very strong folk that mine adamantium from the mountains, where they met Torin, a blind earth shaper, who was able to guide them through a Indiana Jones-like temple of tricks and traps, where they eventually encountered several earth elementals, and finally the nasty, hideous Medusa herself, whose gaze turns people into stone. After defeating her, very valiantly if I might add, they were able to pull the earth crystal from her crown where it was inlaid. From there, they traveled to, Torn gave them directions to a port town, which upon arrival they realized that it was a very, very intensely pirate-populated town, where they'd be able to find somebody who was attuned to the element of water from the seafaring folk. From there, they asked around, went to the biggest ship they could possibly find, and they were eventually led to one of the most illustrious captains in the area, and her lover, who is a coastal druid and attuned to the waters in the coastlines. Lux and Kaya and their little buddy Bandit eventually guided them through on a wonderful seafaring Pirates of the Caribbean type adventure. Took them through into the Marble Seas, essentially the Bermuda Triangle of the lands, and the Underdark of the waters, where they got into a wonderful, fantastic sea fight with a ship of Quatoa monsters. Eventually, they made their way to a hidden island with the help of Kaya, scrying and guiding them, where they met a Hydra, which was slain far too easily, in my opinion. Just gonna throw that out there. I'm not, not beat up about that at all. Carrying on, they made their way into the cavern of the Hydra after defeating it, where they found a coven of sea hags that were guarding the final water crystal. After getting it, they handed it to Kaya, who then gave our wonderful cleric a scroll towards the lost city facing the sky. After reaching where they thought the city would be, they had the end of a cliff facing out to a void of cloud and fog and just pure emptiness and sky. They were then greeted by what to find out was Bruce Riot's long-lost sister, Lara Riot, who was riding her very wonderful hippogriff friend, Roth, who is a elemental air monk, who was their next guide, leading them out into the void. Everybody got their own wonderful hippogriff companion to ride out into the void with, where they encountered the pet of a storm giant, the Rock, a airplane-sized eagle monstrosity that was going to fight them in the skies. Which, of course, yeah, I see you smirking about those. I see you smirking. After their battle with Medusa, they did harvest one of her eyes and was able to make a ring that had the power for petrification. And of course, as we like to call, Jeanna rolled. And at the petrification of the Medusa eye, the Rock failed its constitution save and turned into stone. And is now at the bottom of the void, crumbled, and we assume a statue of Dwayne The Rock Johnson remains. Because reasons. Naturally. From there, they were guided from the air temple on their way to what they assumed to be a city at the base of a volcano. Upon arrival, they found, similar to what they saw in all the other cities, people quite attuned to the element and terrain that they've been in. They mine granite stone from the caverns around the mountain, harvest the lava for various magical needs. The town is run by a very powerful line of dragon-blooded sorcerers, whose children, known as the Fire Twins, they were able to choose between in order to help them upon arrival into the town. We had a wonderful meeting with an old enemy of Heiska's, a half-orc barbarian that burnt down her shop. She wonderfully got revenge in the best way possible with the help of her companions. And I think that's just about where we're going to start off. They have arrived in the town of Brimstone Peak and are about to take off on their quarry of the final plane elemental crystal. Afterwards, we'll see what comes along for the spirit crystal and how they manage to bring them all together to try and rid themselves of their curse. Enjoy the antics of the wild magic, because I know I do.